активно, військові політики, радники, є вагомі напрацювання і дуже багато днів, тижнів працювали наші команди. І фактично ми розуміємо, якою має бути основа для реальних гарантій безпеки. Базова рамка є. Також розуміємо, що гарантії безпеки – це не про майбутнє колись, це про ситуацію і зараз теж. Сильна українська армія є і буде центральним елементом гарантій безпеки. Відповідно, це можливості нашої армії, це і зброя, і фінансування, і тренування, і виробництво зброї. Все це забезпечуємо. І це має бути через рік, це має бути через 5 років, через 10 років, як в умовах війни зараз, так і для гарантування безпеки потім, в мирний час. У нас є основа для плану щодо сил, щодо конкретних кроків. Визначаємо, які країни братимуть участь в тому чи іншому компоненті безпеки, хто на землі, хто може допомогти в небі, хто в морському просторі, хто в кіберпросторі, хто не має власних сил, але може долучитись фінансово. Також це конкретика щодо виробництв. Ми констатуємо, що європейські виробничі лінії працюють поки що недостатньо, але це все потрібно і зрозуміло, як нарощувати. Обсяги мають бути більшими, швидкість має бути більшою. Також ми маємо значні виробничі потужності в Україні сьогодні, які не використовуються через дефіцит і брак коштів. Це дійсно серйозно. Майже 60% всієї зброї, яку ми сьогодні використовуємо в Україні, вироблено у нас в Україні. Українці в цьому успішні, я вважаю, якісні, і маємо допомогти кожній європейській країні бути успішною в тому чи іншому виробництві. Технологічне лідерство для Європи критично важливе. Це своя здорова промисловість і достатньо робочих місць, достатньо інвестицій, достатньо взаємодії, лідерства в глобальній конкуренції. Європа має бути лідером, і ми, зокрема, це просуваємо, коли будуємо нові гарантії безпеки для України. Готуємо документи щодо гарантій та визначаємо інвестиції у безпеку від кожної країни. Як Еммануель сказав, 26 країн погодились надати Україні гарантії безпеки. І я думаю, що на сьогодні за довгий час це така серйозна, перша така серйозна дуже конкретика. І я вітаю нас з цим всіх, і тебе вітаю, і Кіра, як головуючих коаліції охочих. Третє. Важливо, що Америка з нами, ми працюємо в багатьох форматах, від таких програм, як Pearl, що дозволяють купувати американську зброю, до готовності Америки брати участь в гарантіях безпеки довгостроково. Сьогодні ми говорили з президентом Трампом. Ми дякуємо за підтримку. Тривала розмова, детальна, про те, як підштовхувати ситуацію до миру. Ми обговорили різні опції. Найголовніше – це тиск, щоб сильними заходами, зокрема економічними, змусити до припинення війни. Ключ до миру – позбавлення російської машини війни, грошей, позбавлення ресурсів.
Because right now is Tim Kirby, he's an American journalist, he's joining me from Moscow. Tim, let's understand from you, right now the Paris summit has concluded. There is a press briefing that is being addressed by Zelensky, and a strong announcement that has been made by Macron, the president of France. He said there are 26 nations that are committed to providing security guarantees to Ukraine in event of a peace deal that gets signed between Moscow and Kyiv. How do you have to react to this?
Well, nothing is different. I mean, from the beginning of this hot phase of this conflict starting in 2022, Europe, for the most part, has promised to support the Ukrainian side. How have they done that? They've sent some better weapons, some worse weapons, some obsolete weapons, some weapons they didn't even really have to send, and threw money at the problem. And also provided a lot of PR support and empty words. And this is just exactly the same thing. This is nothing different, nothing surprising. It's the same sort of methodology, in quotes, happening over and over again.
Right. Absolutely. Also, there has been a video conference that has been held between the European leaders and US President Donald Trump. What are the hopes that there could be a peace deal between Ukraine and Russia in the coming weeks? Also, the proposal by President Putin that Zelensky should visit Moscow to hold that peace deal meeting, peace deal negotiation. Do you think that will be acceptable to Ukraine or to the other European leaders?
No, there's probably not going to be a peace deal because no side of the conflict can back down. For the Russians, this is an existential war for survival, their geopolitical survival, their national sovereignty. For the Ukrainians, or at least the powers that be in Kiev, I should say more specifically, it's kind of become the same thing. If they surrender, it's over for them. For the Europeans, it's also a very similar situation where a lot of their future depends on this. They essentially put all their chips down on this project, and it'll be very hard for them to pull out of it, especially for the people who have the more globalist or monopolar view of the world. Essentially admitting that they've lost is definitely the end of that world, and many of the European leaders especially are trying to hold out in the hopes that maybe at some point in the near future the sanctions will finally take hold and break the Russians, or something will change within Russia, or some other factor will arise that will change the nature of the war. But essentially, the only thing that all the parties involved can really agree on is that the war continuing is an acceptable option. And so it's going to.
Right, absolutely. Now, here on, after the Alaska summit that has taken place, do you think there is any positive momentum towards some sort of a ceasefire or a peace negotiation looking forward?
Again, I really highly doubt that. I think that there won't really be a moment of suing for peace. I think that this thing is going to grind itself down to the very end. It's going to be that sort of situation because, again, the Russian side has stated over and over again that if there's going to be a peace agreement, the opposing side has to adjust the root causes, and that is very unlikely to happen from Zelensky and the people around him and the Europeans. Can you really imagine that people like Macron, who you just mentioned, are really going to one day wake up and be like, you know what? Yeah, Ukraine's never going to be in NATO. We can't ever put our Western NATO troops on their territory. We're just going to have to give this thing up to the Russians and get rid of all the Nazis and demilitarize it. They're never going to agree to that. And thus, I really don't see any peace project being successful. Of course, the Russians and the Americans, seemingly in Alaska and even before that, have had a lot of discussions about maybe we could presume how the world is going to look and how they can live together in somewhat harmony after the war is over. That seems to be happening. But making the war end in a very UN-friendly handshake sort of way doesn't seem to be on the table. I wish it would be, but it's not.
Okay, some of the news points that are coming in from that press conference that is being addressed by Zelensky and by Macron. Here Zelensky says that everybody agrees that Russia is rejecting any peace initiative. He's also said that while he was in conversation with a phone call with Donald Trump, he has discussed the pressure that needs to be mounted on Russia. He says the documents are being prepared by each of the countries on their contribution to the security guarantees. How do you view the congregation that has come at the Paris summit, particularly focusing on the security guarantees and deployment of troops of the NATO allies and the European countries on the borders of Ukraine? Is this going to be acceptable to Russia, and if not, why?
Well, from the very beginning of the special military operation, the Russian side has repeated over and over again demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine. And now that the war has gone on and there are now 4 new territories within the Russian Federation that used to be part of 1991 Ukraine, well, anything that goes against those basic 3 things of the way the Russians see this war, their sort of 3 points, anything that violates that, they're not going to agree to. And when it comes to the perhaps secession of territory, their constitution forbids them, including Putin himself, from doing it. So there's really no way. Maybe from a European perspective, that seems unreasonable, but obviously from the Russian perspective, it seems like that's a bare minimum offer of what should be on the table.
Tim, stay on with me. I'm also being joined by John Rosamundo. He's the president of Viking Research Associates and geopolitical analyst. He's joining me from Washington, D.C. John, thank you very much. And your first reactions, the big statement coming in from Macron, 26 nations from Europe are committed to providing security guarantees and deployment of troops along the Ukrainian border.
Well, I think that, barring a peace treaty, I mean, that is exactly what the Russians invaded Ukraine over. They were worried about moving NATO troops to their borders. I think that it's going to, lead to further escalation. You have the talk about the French having up to 50,000 beds for casualties from Ukraine by March of next year. So I really think that that Macron is playing a dark game.
Okay, now do you think this coalition of the willing does have a substantive role to play in how the peace deal happens, if at all it happens?
Well, I think in terms of, if we have a Korea situation in which you have a ceasefire and you have, troops from such nations augmenting the Ukrainians behind whatever, de facto border emerges, I think that it would have a role to play there. But not until Zelensky agrees to A, step aside, which is a condition the Russians are imposing, and B, if they are able to get the Ukrainians to agree to at least a de facto loss of those territories.
Again, how do you view the very restrained stance that has been taken by Donald Trump when it comes to showing its support for providing security guarantees? Trump has been reticent and refused to provide those guarantees or deployment of troops along the border, even as Europe continues to persuade Trump to play a more active role in securing and ensuring safety and security for Ukraine.
Well, I mean, Donald Trump has said all along he wants 0 American troops there. I mean, that's something he ran about. He said about keeping American boots off the ground. We can't be the world's policeman. But I think that, some sort of, de facto, protection for Ukraine against future Russian aggression, combined with a de facto acceptance of the Russian occupation of the territories that NATO has no way militarily to throw the Russians off of, is sort of, what you're going to have to accept.
Right. Also, do you think Trump has been quite tapered ever since he has held that meeting with President Putin in Alaska, that Alaska summit? Because even after Putin yesterday made this very strong statement that either Zelensky should come to Moscow and hold those peace negotiations with him, otherwise he will be bound to act and forced to end this war. We have not seen a retaliatory remark coming in from Trump thus far. It's been very tepid, like I said yesterday. All he said was that he is hoping and wanting for peace to prevail between both countries.
Well, I think that you have a lot of hyperbole, a lot of bluster. You also had Putin saying that the Ukrainian army is not up to the challenge of driving the Russians out, saying that it has a readiness of less than 50%. I mean, there's a lot of happy talk about how the Ukrainians have held off the Russians, but the thing is the Ukrainians are not strong enough themselves to end this war. But when Putin talks about moving the needle against Ukraine, he's struggled. All he's been fighting for a few miles of territory that go back and forth.
Right, absolutely. All right. Thank you, John, for joining me. And that's the press conference that has just concluded. And The important remarks made by Zelensky asking United States of America that US should partake in providing security guarantees to Ukraine, and of course Macron saying that there will be 26 nations within Europe that are committed to ensuring safety and security of Ukraine in event of a peace negotiation being signed between Ukraine and Russia. Thank you, Tim Kirby, also for joining me on the telecast and sharing your views. Now, the Portuguese Prime Minister Luís